Yes, hello. I am James Rowlands, and today it's a WNR314. It's WWE Hell in a Cell 2020. And after the huge success of the Halloween Spooktactular, we have invited back at Select Match Type Pod. How you guys doing? You all right?
Yeah, great. Thanks. How are you?
All good, all good. And like I said, we came off last week's Spooktacular, and that was a trip down memory lane, really, wasn't it?
It was. All I've wanted to do this week is watch old WCW pay-per-views and WCW matches. So
Have you just been going through my list, Si? Have you sat there watching Jeff Jarrett and Chronic versus Goldberg?
I've avoided Chronic matches, but
Well, no, I thought about maybe doing something like the worst of WCW in 2000 because there's so many hits last week, and I thought, well, if that's what the people want, then maybe somewhere down the line, you never know.
A nice treat for the listeners there.
Yeah. All right, so let's get on to today's show. Like we said, it is Hell in a Cell 2020. And what was the excitement level beforehand with you guys?
Go on, Chris. You can go first.
Yeah, I was going to say I was literally just saying to the missus before coming on air. Normally, with the current product, my anticipation levels were very low for Hell in a Cell. But I tell you what, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great pay-per-view. If this is what they're going to do and reduce the number of matches over 3 hours and start going NXT style, I'm all on board for it.
I was actually the opposite. I was really excited for the show, even though it was only 5 advertised matches. There was one that was added in the pre-show, but I've talked about previously how I'm not a big fan of Hell in a Cell matches just being set up because of the time of year, and I think they did a good job of actually building 3 relevant rivalries that felt like they deserved to be in cell matches. So I was actually quite excited for it before, and I thought it was a really good show.
Yeah, well, what better way to kick off then with kickoff? And we're going to go through it all. Charlie Caruso, Double J, The King, Booker, and Pete Rosenberg. Well, there we see Heyman interviewed. I'll go Simon first. What are your thoughts on Heyman and Reigns? Because, I mean, that's been probably the biggest story in WWE recently, hasn't it?
It has. I was dubious of it at the start. I knew that, well, I was fairly confident that both of them could really make it work, but I didn't feel like, we've talked about this on a previous episode, that there was a great backstory for why Reigns has returned and immediately gone with Heyman. There was a few steps in the story missing, is what we sort of came to. But it's working really well. The only thing that is I would slightly change about it, I don't know why Paul Heyman in promos has completely changed his style and now just whispers. I don't know why he does that. It's similar to when Rollins became the Monday Night Messiah, and nothing about his promos particularly changed. It's style-wise, apart from everything became much slower.
But Heyman actually did that in his interview as well when he was talking about if Jay was to lose and it was going to be, that he had the Usos had to be the servant of Roman. We see Jeff Hardy interview fighting his demons, as they always call it, not a massive drug issue. I suppose that would take a little bit. R-Truth with Double J. This was actually made me laugh because he called him Road Dogg, and I do love R-Truth in certain parts. And talking about Jeff Jarrett rip-off, we see Elias. He's got a new album. That's actually gone to number 1, I think, on iTunes. Miz and Morrison interview. And
three albums in a row, is it, that now he's had number 1?
I mean, it is.
That shows you. I mean, Cena's had a number one rap album. When you got that WWE promotional juggernaut behind you, you can easily be pushed to number 1.
I think it's crazy. And our kickoff match was R-Truth versus Drew Gulak. And this started off with a little bit of comedy as Gulak boots little Jimmy. What are your thoughts on Drew Gulak? I mean, Chris, do you like Drew? Do you like his style, or is there something missing a little bit?
I like him. I like him as a wrestler and the technical style he brings to it. Obviously, he had that great program with Daniel Bryan a little while ago that didn't get a proper resolution as so much of WWE product does it nowadays. But he's fine. I say he's a really good wrestler. If we can get a storyline for people to care about him, I think he could get a proper push.
That's my thought. Like, it seems like they don't particularly know what to do with him, and that's why he's kicking little Jimmy in the pre-show of a pay-per-view.
This is the thing, the guys can do so many different things, but again, with a wrestler, hasn't got a purpose, so kind of gets lost in the shuffle. We see Truth start to make a comeback and use several of John Cena's signature moves. He failed to hit the AA, but did hit a lie detector for a 2 count. Gulak met him on the top rope for a superplex, but Truth countered and won with a jackknife cover. What are your thoughts on this match?
It was perfectly acceptable for a pre-show match. I wonder. I normally, if I'm watching a pay-per-view, don't tend to watch the pre-show generally because I'll watch it the next day. But obviously, because we were covering it, I decided to, and it wasn't a disappointing match by any stretch. Why this couldn't have gone on to the show when there was only 5 advertised matches, not quite sure. But something's got to go on the pre-show, I suppose.
I suppose so, I mean, even though these guys are comedy, it's not a bad match. It's not great, but why would WWE give us something that we actually did? The 24/7 title, has that done anything to add to the roster since its inception?
It's added 42 title reigns to R-Truth, to be fair.
R-Truth's going to go into the Hall of Fame as the greatest title holder of all time.
The most successful champion ever, yeah. I don't particularly mind the 24/7 stuff. I was a big fan of the hardcore title being 24/7 back in the day, and it, as much as it's slightly different because they could push the boundary. Sorry, back in the day, Crash Holly was one of the big things that got that title over through the 24/7, and that was mainly comedy stuff. So it's a bit hypocritical for me it would be quite hypocritical for me to say that I therefore don't like the 24/7 title. But
the only thing with
it's quite the same.
Oh, sorry. The only thing with the 24/7 title is, at least with the hardcore title and the skits they did, the backstage title changes and the out of arena stuff, it was there just to fill in a small section of programming. Whereas now with the whole YouTube and the rest of the network and online stuff, the 24/7 title is just everywhere, and it is just too much because they're using it just to be able to fill out hours and hours and hours of digital broadcasts.
I think that is true.
What are your thoughts, James?
So, like I said, for the 24/7 title, if it's used kind of correctly, but sometimes with WWE, their comedy is not what I find comedy, and I think sometimes it's a little bit hit or miss. It's not going to be a kind of a serious championship, but like I said, with Crash Holly or a character like they tried with Truth, it can work sometimes. We're going to mark the matches out of 5. I'm giving this one 2.5. Simon, what's your score on the first match?
I'll give it straight down the middle, 2.5. I'll match you.
And that's a full house because I am also giving it a 2.5.
All right, so on to the main show. We get the opening promo. This is yeah.
Sorry, go on.
This is standard stuff. WWE letting you know that this is a free match card. Not bad. We are still in the Thunderdome. Well, this is going to be a silly question, but do we like the Cell match? And do we like this look on Head in the Cell? I don't know which one you want to take.
Well, we've just done a whole series on Hell in a Cell matches. So, yes, we absolutely love Hell in a Cell when it's done well and when it's built to in the right way. I think we both agree, and we mentioned it when we covered Rollins versus The Fiend, that the grey cell looks so much better, and what a ball ache it must have been for the poor guy that had to paint the individual panels.
Do you know, I always remember someone saying that after, I think it was like WrestleMania 20 main event, and you know they're celebrating in the ring and all the confetti, and one of my mates said, "I wonder who's cleaning that up." you don't think about these things. We get on to our first match, and it was Hell in a Cell, Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns. How we got here? Well, what a story this is. Roman returned at SummerSlam, and a week later at Payback, he was Universal Champion. Jey had won a number 1 contendership match, but Clash of Champions came up short when brother Jimmy threw in the towel. But Jey didn't show the tribal chief respect, so inside Hell, there's going to be a first ever I Quit match. What are your thoughts on the feud leading up to this?
I'll tell you what I did love for this and all 3 of the cage matches we touched on to begin with. The promo work for them was really, really strong. It's easy to get lost in what's going on across various storylines. Promos clear, succinct, made you actually care about the matches coming up. Yeah, really good work on the promo side.
One thing I will mention about the promo for this one, something that definitely sprung to mind when Reigns said, "Your children and your children's children." I was just thinking of the Jebediah Springfield episode of The Simpsons for 3 months. Immediately springs to mind whenever I hear children's children. It's the small things.
But did this match need a sequel? Did they tell the story at Clash of Champions and they kind of, as WWE, eking it out a little bit, or did Jay deserve another chance at Roman?
I don't think that he can justify being the number one contender, but I like the fact that they set this up with not necessarily saying that it's got the biggest stipulation ever or the biggest stakes ever isn't quite the right way of describing it, I don't think. But it having the potential to be one of the most dangerous matches ever was a good setup for it, I think.
Well, I think the fact that they had the fact they had Jimmy throwing in the towel on the last match meant that you could have it with Jay essentially being, I deserve another chance, and it's actually down to me to decide I'm quitting.
Yeah. His line that if it wasn't for Jimmy, he would be champion. I'm not sure that he's quite being honest with himself there, but.
Well, this is the fourth time inside Hell for Roman, but I only remember Usos versus New Day, which was incredible inside Hell in a Cell. That's a match. When I looked at these two guys, a Hell in a Cell popped to my head. It was that match that did. You got to love the boos for Reigns. What are everybody's thoughts on Reigns' heel turn? We talked about association with Heyman, but I mean Reigns is really taken to this role, hasn't he? You know.
Yeah, he is. I did feel like the sound was quite. It sounded really piped in, so that there was no sort of mixed reaction whatsoever for Reigns. It was just like out and out boos. So that I think WWE are being selective with the sound that they're putting through from the Thunderdome. Don't know if either of you agree with that.
I don't listen to the sound on it. No, what I mentioned was the amount of boos that were coming through for Reigns, and like you said, there's definitely sometimes they do pipe it through. But I think he's kind of this character and what he's portraying is kind of really working for him. I did want to see Jay with more offense. What happened? Well, they started off just staring at each other from across the ring, talked a little trash. Roman said he'd only changed because he had to, and Jey Uso said he did it for the title. We see Jay build some momentum, hitting a couple of suicide dives and taking a big dog against the cage. And then Reigns hitting him with the spear. He tried to bring a chair in the ring, but Uso caught him with a drop kick before he could follow up. The champion nailed him with a second spear. These spears looked like they were breaking Jay in half. And at that point, the first spear, I was thinking to myself, this match might be over.
Yeah, it was. They were really good spears. They looked really powerful and effective. The camera work was quite good for that as well because it really jolted as Jay was hit with it.
And I think another thing that helped out was the fact that you could hear everything these two guys were saying to each other, as opposed to the full arena.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I mean the commentary team did really well on how little they actually spoke. I didn't realize till I was watching it. And it wasn't until they spoke that I realised that they hadn't actually been speaking for about 5 minutes or so.
Well, sometimes it's the thing the commentary team don't say rather than what they do.
And this is the thing, exactly. And when they're into the match, we become into it as well. It's kind of weird. Jay looked out of it, and after talking a bit of smack, Roman tried to hit a third spear, but Uso countered and hit a super kick and an Uso splash. He hit another one. Reigns said, "The head of the table never quits," which I thought was a really cool line. And then we got the leather strap. And I don't know about you guys, you've been watching wrestling for quite a while. Do you ever find with a weapon, whether it be a strap or a kendo stick, that they usually take it in turns anyway? Like, not normally is one guy just going to get away with a whooping, you know?
Yeah, tit for tat is usually the way these things go. What did you think about Jay using the choke with the strap? It was not so long ago that Daniel Bryan was heavily fined for using a necktie to choke someone. Seems we've moved past that now in WWE.
I think it's a bit weird. I mean, maybe it was too realistic with a Daniel Bryan way of doing it as opposed to this, but I think him actually making Roman, I think the visual and the look and the kind of it really played off well. But like you said, maybe because it's Roman, they're saying, well, we'll let this happen. Heyman made me laugh asking Jay not to as well, which I thought was quite funny.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was looking at it, it's a case of, as you say, maybe the necktie was too realistic. With this one, you could see obviously him choking him, but Roman didn't look as in any real danger, that he was struggling to actually breathe or he was being genuinely choked out.
Well, we see a nice exchange that led to Jay to dodge a Superman punch and, like I said, choke him out. Jay took too long with a chair and got caught in the guillotine. Reigns could quit, and to be able to, like I said, to hear every word was a bonus. Reigns using the guillotine is a bit of a weird one, but I think maybe because he's quite a big guy and it's maybe submission that's used for smaller ones. But if that's what he wants to go for, I'm not going to argue, you know.
I think it's quite an effect, like particularly as he's sort of being portrayed as a monster heel character, putting someone in the guillotine and then being choked out rather than submitting seems to fit quite well with it. It reminds me a bit of remember when Lesnar used to use the bear hug, like in his debut year.
Yeah,
maybe that's good because obviously guillotine's a UFC MMA move, so maybe they're going to play into that if and when Lesnar does come back.
Well, we see the tribal chief dragging Uso to the apron and hit the drive-by drop kick. And he put the steel stairs next to his head and kicked it as hard as he could. Again, all this visual and all this storyline at this moment in time, I was into this one, there's no doubt. The ref wanted to stop the match, but Reigns threw him out of the ring. And we see several officials come down.
Just on the ref wanting to stop the match, he asks Jay so many times, and it seemed more of an interrogation technique than anything else. It was, I can help you. All you need to do is tell me you quit, and I can go easy on you. Like it was very police interrogation style.
Bit like Batman and Bane. Where is he?
To be fair, the refereeing for when they decide to stop these matches is all over the place. It's like drive-by, and drive-by's like, I'm going to have to stop it. When Jay's laying there saying, I can't breathe, no, carry on.
Well, this is the thing, and we see all the officials come in. He chased them out. Reigns yelled at his cousin that this was all his fault. He was about to crush Jay's head with the steps when Jimmy ran down and got in his way. He called Jay by his real name, Josh, as he begged Reigns to stop. The big dog broke down crying and sat down next to his cousins, and he grabbed Jimmy and choked him out as he held Jay's hand. Jay quit to save his brother, finally end the match. Reigns stood over them with a title held high before leaving with Heyman. As for the match and the ending, I just thought it was brilliant. What were both of your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was perfect storytelling. It was quite slow in parts, but they were trying to do, and I often find that with I Quit matches because there's obviously going to be big breaks where one guy is on the ground, like being asked whether they quit. On that, how did Jay actually quit without the ref asking him? How does that work? Why do we need a ref in an I Quit match if you can just shout I quit and the guy with the bell can just ring it? It seems unnecessary.
No, that's how we go to a third match now. We get no.
There you go.
I didn't quit the first time. You technically didn't ask me the second time around.
It's Jimmy's fault again. It's Jimmy, all right? You got to sort him out.
And the other thing, so as Jimmy gets put in the guillotine, Graves points out, come on, he's just had knee surgery. It was on the ground. His knee was in no danger whatsoever.
He might get cramp.
Right, do not talk to me about some, honestly, Michael Cole, as good as he was tonight, if I have to hear him say someone's being slammed into hell in a cell one more time, no. You don't watch a last man standing match and go, oh, he's in the last man standing.
Will he be the last man standing?
No, it's a cell, Michael. The Hell in a Cell is the match type.
I thought this was brilliant. I mean, if Roman will do this to his family, what will he do to everyone else? Heyman can't control Roman like he does Brock, which, again, is another story that I like because, obviously, with Brock, he had that control. And with Reigns, the selling of Heyman in facial features alone made Reigns look like a bad man. And emotion and meaning are so much in him. I loved how he saved his brother. Both men gained, for me, so much. And I feel Hollywood will come for Reigns as well.
Oh, undoubtedly. He's got the body type that they love to stick as a villain or a henchman in the same way Batista did, if he can actually wrap some of his head around half the actor that Batista is now, there'll be some big roles for him, I imagine.
I think without a doubt.
Including Gears of War, maybe, similar to Batista, as we see advertised later on in the show.
Well, now the Usos are the servants of Reigns, and we see Roman going to the stage where the Wild Samoans, Afa and Sika, Reigns' father, come out. They embrace and put the lei over his neck, and they acknowledge Reigns as tribal chief. Again, the visuals in this alone were absolutely brilliant. And even the commentary team, Tom or Todd Phillips, Byron Saxton, and Samoa Joe, they talk about what they've just seen from Reigns up to the whole situation, you know?
I thought they play it up as though someone died from... if you were just watching the commentary team after the match, you would have assumed something awful had happened.
Out of 5 then, Simon, what are you giving this match?
So I was going through our Hell in a Cell coverage because I didn't want to give it based on matches in comparison to this night. I'm going to give it in comparison to other Hell in a Cell matches. And the one that I'm sort of closest to in terms of a star rating is Edge versus The Undertaker, which I gave 3.5 out of 5. So I'm going to go for 3.25 stars on this one.
I think the storytelling was far better than Edge Undertaker. So, and everything in this just worked for me completely. I'm giving this 4 stars.
I would have to go towards Chris. I'm going to give this 4.25. Like I said, the emotion and, you know, the Hell in a Cell matches, look at them through time. It's going to get more and more difficult year on year because just the amount that we have, and having 3 Hell in a Cell matches, you know, with the Undertaker and Edge, they had just the 1 cell match on the card. And now Reigns and Jay not only have got to have their own match, and they've got 2 more to come as well. So I think it's a difficult situation, but I'm going to give that 4.25.
Fair enough.
Prediction-wise, we did predictions. We should say
we did. Yeah, we should have done this at the start.
I did predictions. I did predictions. Someone challenged me. Brandon did on Twitter, as I have challenges. With the kickoff match, it was 1-1. And at 1-1, we both went for truth. Did you have predictions for this as well?
We did, yeah. We went for Gulak for the pre-show, so we were a solid 0 to start the show. But we did go for Reigns in the opener, so we're 1 from 2.
Yes. So 2-1 with us, and it's 2-2 when it comes to Brandon. That is not going to confuse me in the slightest. Polls, we put polls up for everybody to choose. Roman Reigns got 78%. I don't think that's any real surprise.
I'm surprised it was only 78%, to be honest. There was no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Roman was going to win this match.
On to match 3, and it's Elias, and he's making his way to the ring and talking about how Jeff Hardy tried to end his career by hitting him with a car. Does anybody remember that? He survived and wrote an album. Before he pays Hardy's royalties, he's going to sing a song. Elias sings about Hardy drinking alcohol until, of course, Hardy interrupts. So it's Jeffrey Elias, how we got here. Like we said, Elias says Jeff ran him over. Jeff denied it. The commentators were saying this was first time ever. Is this a dream match? Is this...
I think you need to widen your horizons if this is your dream.
It's when they were saying about Elias really upping his game and stepping up against big, huge superstars like Jeff Hardy. It's like, yeah, back in early 2000, maybe we would have been having that conversation. But
yeah.
Well,
the other thing, commentary team mentioned. So just after Elias sings about the DUIs and booze, Samoa Joe also lays into Jeff, saying that he's got he's electric in the ring and he's got an electric lifestyle outside of it.
Do you think it's a couple of questions now? Do you think it's fair that Jeff Hardy, they're using this kind of the past that he's got and his demons? Do you think it's right in storyline wise? And do you think Jeff Hardy actually deserves another kind of world title run?
If Jeff's happy to use his demons in the storytelling, then I've got no problem with it. If he's happy for him to go ahead and use them, obviously he's been through them. He's better placed than I am to say whether he's happy. And B, another world title run. Stranger things have happened. That going from this match, I'm not buzzing for it.
I agree. I don't think they would play into it if it wasn't if Jeff hadn't given the go ahead to use lines like this. I know that they have in the past, but it feels like a very different place from the sort of mid 90s where it was Hawk, wasn't it, who they sort of subtly mentioned on commentary quite often about him having alcohol problems.
Well, he climbed a Titantron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was Scott Hall as well.
They just have this thing, yeah. They've got to have alcohol, or pretend you're drunk. It's going to work out really well.
It'd be easy for us to list who didn't have alcohol or dependency problems.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I just can't live without my Ica Pro either. So.
Well, they took the fight out of the ring and were able to turn the tables. He missed a jump off the steps and crashed into barricade. Elias kept the upper hand for a few minutes and came close to win with a set-up powerbomb. Hardy hit Whisper in a win for a 2 count and then he dropped Elias with a twist of fate. The singer rolled out the ring to roll the swanton. Hardy stopped him from using the guitar as a weapon and turned it on Elias, getting himself disqualified in the process. What a shitty finish for a pay-per-view. What are your thoughts on the match?
I thought it was decent. There was a nice mat-based start. As you say, Elias took control for a bit before Hardy jumped off the steps. I thought the spot of the match was the Elias hitting the electric chair into the powerbomb, which is a very impressive move. Hardy sold for it really well, as you say. I can just see this one going on for months and months. It's going to be the new Riddle versus King Corbin, and we're going to see about 30 different variations of this match, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, Chris, what are you giving it out of 5?
I'm going straight down the middle because I'd only one eye on it because I'd lost interest in it. I wish Jeff had come off the turnbuckle rather than stepping down. Maybe then I'd have given it more than 2.5. I'm giving it.
I'm going 2 stars. Just on the other thing on this match, do you think they kept playing up that it wasn't Jeff Hardy that ran over Elias? Do you think that we're ever going to get an answer as to who ran over Elias? Are we going to get
the ghost of Rikishi? I'm telling you.
He did it for Jeff.
This is the thing, isn't it? Like it's long-term planning with WWE is not a thing. So when they try it, you go, well, you're not going to play it out, or they'll announce who did it and then just completely bury them when they get onto Raw or SmackDown.
It was the Raw general manager all along.
Oh yeah. Right. So predictions for that. Brandon went Jeff. I went Jeff. What did you guys go for?
We went Elias.
Oh.
I just thought he's coming back after an injury. It makes sense for him to go over. Jeff Hardy doesn't particularly need it, whereas they sort of need to rebuild Elias after his injury. So, yeah. Plus, I'm always quite into Elias. I think it's a good gimmick. We went to see him in Sheffield last year, I think it was, and he had the crowd in the palm of his hand singing Wonderwall. Everything was great.
Yeah,
I'm a big Elias fan.
We saw him in, I think, London a few years back, and it was exactly the same thing after it went off the air, which is so good with the crowd. And you wonder with Elias if there's definitely something there, but I don't think WWE knows what it is because we've seen him used in these positions for so long and never kind of had an extended run, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
With the 3 number 1 albums now as well, it's how much stomach has he actually got to be touring and working WWE all year round. Are we going to go to Jericho route with Fozzy and we'll see him rock up 3-4 months out of the year before a new album and an 18-month touring cycle?
I don't think he needs to worry about touring for a bit, to be honest.
Well, you never know. You never know. We move on to match 4. We see Caleb Braxton backstage with Otis and Tucker. Otis starts to gyrate, but says the Miz has taken so much for him, and he's very angry. So Miz and Otis, how we got here? Well, WWE have lost faith in Otis, haven't they? The breakout star of 2019 and 2020 has been hurt by no crowd and negative reaction online. Miz and Morrison have been treading water these past few months. What are your thoughts on Otis and Miz and Morrison before we get to this match?
I think we were saying in one of our previous episodes, we had genuinely forgot that Otis held the Money in the Bank contract. So I'm not surprised they've done what they do in this match because, as you say, They clearly lost faith in him. He was hugely over with a live crowd. And I think as we find stuff going online, whether it be wrestling, football, any sporting product, people are really having a huge backlash against things they're not happy with.
You mentioned Miz and Morrison as well. It's straight. Do you remember when Morrison was first coming back, and it was this big deal was made about how he was going to be pushed, and look how far he's fallen since his return. He's a corner man for a bit of a comedy match, essentially.
Well, a lot of people said with TNA back in the day that they had stars and just made them into normal wrestlers, but I feel WWE has that ability nowadays to bring back Morrison, who had so much excitement, and he's just playing second fiddle to the Miz now, and it's just, I don't know. But with Otis, I mean, not since Kennedy has there been a bigger loss of confidence, and that's including Damien Sandow. But onto the match, and as soon as the ref called for the bell, Otis rushed the Miz in the corner and crushed him. He scoops him up to try and score a quick 2 count as Tucker and John Morrison watched from ringside. Jomo provided a distraction so the Miz could hit a DDT for another near fall. Morrison hit a cheap shot behind the referee's back. The A-lister hit the it kicks in the corner. Miz nailed him in the face with a big boot, but Otis began to build up a head of steam and hit a few of his own signature moves. The ref caught Morrison about to use a briefcase as a weapon, and she kicked him to the back. And while the official was attending to the Miz, Tucker nailed Otis with a briefcase, and a shocked Miz covered him for the victory to win the Money in the Bank. What are our thoughts on this?
I thought it was a passable match. The boot that the Miz hits is a very stiff-looking shot to the jaw. I'm guessing his face is going to be sore the next day. Otis hulking up does nothing for me. I'll be honest. I'm not interested in the slightest. But yeah, it was an average match. I'm glad that they have got the contract off Otis. But the one thing that WWE really did not need is fewer tag teams at the moment. So breaking up a team that weren't singles guys merged together seems like a backward step. And it's obviously going to be a bit of a feud going forward, but I'm not really interested in it in the slightest.
Well, the problem is they haven't done anything to build that feud up, have they? They've just had Tucker just turn on Otis for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
Well, there is afterwards he explains that he was the workhorse and Otis became a star, but he's nothing without me. It's the most generic heel turn promo you can imagine.
Yeah, but don't be doing your storyline and filling in the gaps afterwards. Yeah. You should be that. If you're gonna do that turn, then you should be laying the groundwork ahead of time. Not just if we're gonna go that way. Wrestlers may well just go out, do whatever they want, and we'll just fill it in afterwards.
Yeah, true.
I think
one thing we didn't mention in the build to this one as well is the recap of Law and Otis, which I thought was quite good comedy stuff. Getting JBL in as the judge and Farouk as the bailiff. Teddy Long appearing, I thought it was a nice comedy bit with JBL being the corrupt judge at the end.
It's always nice seeing APA, but I think my problem with that is that I'd seen it because I watched it, obviously, the kickoff. And once you see it for the fourth or fifth time, it kind of loses a little bit. But it's nice seeing, like I said, APA together and the kind of, at least it made a little bit of sense getting to this match. But like I said, as Chris said, it's Tucker didn't have any looks towards Otis in any of the months prior to this, never said to him he's unhappy or you're not thinking about the team. I did like the Miz, the way he sold it, how shocked he was, like he didn't deserve it. I think that is good. For a serious Tucker, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But is Miz now a legitimate threat? Is he more? Obviously, he's more of a threat than Otis, but is he a legitimate threat to become champion?
I was convinced that because McIntyre and Orton had feuded for so long and it was Hell in a Cell that he was going to cash in at the end of the night. But we'll have to wait and see what happens there, I suppose.
Spoiler alert! You know?
I know,
Out of 5, I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5. Wasn't a bad match. And I think with the front of a live crowd, it would have been a little bit better as well.
I'm going 2.5.
I'm going to go 3. As you say, I think with a live crowd, I think the turn would have gone up far better with a live crowd. It's really weird, as we were saying about the Thunderdome at the start, with hearing the people cheering and whooping and booing. Are they just doing that in their living room or in front of their laptop, just screaming and shouting?
This was something I was going to mention. So I've not applied for it. And if I was on it and it was 2:00 in the morning getting to the main event, I would not be chanting, "This is awesome" at the top of my lungs. And I think my neighbours would be pretty glad for it, to be honest.
I'm sorry. Come on, get on with it now. All right, come on, let's get this done.
We're like, oh my God, again.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to see a replay again. But the thing is, they've had problems with the Thunderdome, but I think it's actually worked as well as it can. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, obviously, there's a few problems with what people have shown up there and what signs, but I don't think it's a bad.
I much prefer it to having NXT guys stood there doing obviously choreographed chanting and stuff like that. I think it works better. But I'm quite a big basketball fan, and in Orlando they've had a similar thing with a full screen and fans sort of merged together. So yeah, I think that probably skews it for me.
All right, so we'll move on to predictions. Brandon went Miz, I went Otis. What do you guys go for?
We went for the Miz here. Yeah. I just had a feeling that they were going to take it off Otis.
I didn't believe it, and I was thinking to myself, they can't, surely. And then, obviously, don't call me Shirley, but it happened. It's unfortunate because they got it wrong as well. They went 53% for Otis. And like I said, Caleb Braxton interviews the Miz and Morrison backstage. Miz said he's been consistent for 15 years and bring prestige to the briefcase, and Tucker walks up all angry and marches off. And then on to our fifth match, which is Banks versus Bayley inside Hell in a Cell. How have we got here? Well, this might be the longest running story in WWE. Since Bayley turned heel, she's been dominating the women's division. But the question is, would she be doing it without fellow role model Banks? Bayley finally turned on Sasha, and now the boss wants revenge. What do you guys think of the build up to this, which I think should have been the main event as well?
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a tale as old as time. Two heels, one turns on the other, and that results in a fairly heated rivalry. Obviously, it's not the first time they've competed with the Iron Woman match that they had in NXT, probably considered one of the best matches in NXT history. The only problem I had with the recap on this, and Chris is more of a legal expert than myself, but a contract signed while being choked on a chair, I would say, is not legally binding.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Si. I was going to say that would fall under duress. I do believe that. I believe that's enforceable in court.
But yeah, I thought the build for this was great. Obviously, Bayley that's obviously showing that Bayley doubts whether she can do it. But yeah, just doing it while under duress might not be the best legal way of making things happen.
Banks has appeared in every women's Hell in a Cell match. Are these women and this feud better than we have seen in quite some time? Or would you rather have... I mean, because obviously last year... previous, we've had Charlotte and Becky Lynch, but Sasha Banks is, apart from maybe Oscar's, always been one of my favourites. And to see her actually have time and a feud with Bayley, I think this for me is kind of my favourite at this moment in time.
Yeah, out of the three women's Hell in a Cell, I think this is the best I've seen. But these two really just bring the best out of each other. They clearly know each other inside out and work together so well. But yeah, I was slightly disappointed that Asuka didn't get anything on this, like even a pre-show match. But
she got featured getting beaten up by Bayley on the promo package. What more do you want?
And she was in the Lauren Otis skit as well. So what can you possibly?
She's all over the pay-per-view. I don't know what you mean, honestly.
Right, to the match then. What happened? Well, Bayley tried to use the chair as the cell was being lowered, but Banks kicked it outside, which again I thought was quite a cool visual. Once the cell was lowered, it was out of reach, and the boss went right after her. She applied a Banks statement, but a hand to force a break. The role model drove her into the side of the cell. Banks dodged a few kendo stick shots and delivered a huge knee to the face. She pulled out a table and set it up next to the ring. Banks then ran across the table to hit Meteora, I think they were calling it, against the cage. It's a double knees. I was watching it and I was going, I think she just killed Bayley, because that move just looks awesome, you know?
It does.
Sorry, go on.
Running up the table as she does, it looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah, the way she used it as a ramp and into the cell, it made it, yeah, as you say, it looked brutal. At that point in the match as well, Michael Cole mentioned that only one woman in history had combined title reigns longer than Bayley. I'm guessing they're not going to say who after the controversy surrounding the Fabulous Moolah, but
well, it's a shame, isn't it? Really, but like I said, she threw a few chairs into the ring. Bayley was able to throw her over the top rope. She picked up a chair, but missed hitting Banks on the table. The boss kicked the table into her and sent her into steel steps. She then set up 2 kendo sticks between the cage and steps. Bayley tripped her into it, and she hit the steps hard. And again, the spot looked brutal. And Bayley made me laugh by saying, "That's thanks to me. That's thanks to me." That is, which again is great heel work.
yeah, it was really creative. Something I've not seen before, using propping the kendo sticks between the ring steps and the holes in the cell. So yeah, nice creative stuff with weapons. Some people were against use lots of use of weapons in cell, but I think it adds quite nicely to it.
If it was back to the good old hardcore days, Cyan, that's what it was for you.
Yeah,
So you got the chairs, kendo sticks, fire extinguishers. Bayley's talking game was on point the entire match, though. The one when she's assembling the 2 kendo sticks and she has the ref to undo the tape because she's all sweaty. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
So I can't do that, We see the 2 more kendo sticks and use a slingshot to send Banks into them. It either really hurts or Banks' selling is on point. The boss managed to powerbomb Bayley from the apron into the wall of the cage. The role model wedged a chair in the corner and sent the back of Banks' head into it with a sunset flip, which in my mind is as dangerous as an unprotected chair shot. We talked earlier about the choking, and obviously unprotected chair shots aren't allowed. I think going full force, back your head onto a chair is just such a stupid move,
I'd say it's more dangerous because at least with a chair shot, you can see which part of the chair you're going to connect with, so you can aim for not a corner or the pipe that goes around the outside. Whereas when you go falling backwards into it, you've got no control whatsoever. I thought it was a brutal move. Questionable whether things like that should be allowed,
especially after a
so
injury,
against chair shots.
Yeah, I was about to say, especially with so many injuries.
I love the bit after was when the chair fell on her. That was amazing.
Insult to injury.
Well, like I said, Bayley took about 10 minutes with the tape, but the boss found a fire extinguisher and sprayed the champion in the face, beating her from a cell to post and caned the crap out of her. Somehow Bayley blocked a frog splash with a chair and hit a stroke and set up a ladder across 2 chairs to make a bridge in the ring. She sprayed her X on Banks, but the boss avoided a flying chair shot. She hit Bayley's own finisher onto the ladder but couldn't put her away. The champ recovered and hit the Bayley for another 2 count. Bayley then used the chair on Banks and went for a Bayley with the chair, but the boss then locked in the Banks statement with some help from the chair and the submission victory and to win the title. I thought the closing exchanges was great. The match was great. What were your guys' thoughts?
I loved the finish. Not only the fact she's got there in the Banks statement and that chair that has been the start of this recent feud run. Just the way she's stamping on it at the same time as having the Banks statement locked in just to get that additional punishment made Bayley look stronger than they could have done with just having her tap out. The fact she's getting stretched and being hammered with a chair at the same time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought this was a great match. I think the story was really good. There was really creative weapon use. I think that this would have been better, obviously, with a live crowd, and I think I noticed that with this one more than other matches on the card. But yeah, I thought it was really good. The only down point or point I will make about it is, where does Bayley buy a spray paint? Because it's gone by the end of the match. She sprayed it across Becky's chest or stomach, and it's just disappears. She needs to get some advice from Hogan.
Hogan to get the proper ones. Yeah. In years to come, we will realise this was the golden generation of the women's division and the talent that we're seeing now. We should realise how lucky we are. This is Banks' first time winning the SmackDown Women's Championship, and Bayley's 380-day reign is over. Banks is now a Grand Slam. again, fantastic match. Out of 5. Chris, what are you giving us?
This was my match of the night and one of my most recently hugely enjoyed Hell in a Cell matches. It's a 5-star rating from me.
Wow. Well, I've
also given this one a high. I've also given this one a higher rating than the Reigns Uso match, and I've gone 4 stars for this one.
I got to say, this is a 5-star match. The only thing, and the only reason I'm taking my rating for this down a little bit, had a live crowd there, it would have been perfect. So for me, it's not a 5 out of 5 match, even though the action was. So it's 4 3/4 out of 5. But absolutely brilliant, you know.
What do you think is going to be next for these two?
They'll feud for the next 6 months. That's what WWE do, wouldn't it?
So this is because it's a Hell in a Cell match, I'd like it to be the end of the feud. And if I was fantasy booking it, I'd put this on the back burner until the Rumble, set Banks up as a huge champion, have her beat everyone that on the roster, and then have Bayley win the Rumble to set up the WrestleMania rematch. That's how I would book it. But you're probably right. No WWE. We'll see a return match on SmackDown this week.
I'd have separated them for a while. I'd have had one of them I'd have drafted one of them, but then possibly had Sasha still do the same contract signing with the chair, but just making sure that she got that title match before she got drafted to the other brand, and separate them that way. And then you could always move the other woman's title around, messing around, because clearly they got little regard for the Asuka and her title reign, so they can do whatever they want moving that one around.
Well, they could.
Well, they know the fans are happy with Asuka, aren't they? This is WWE's problem. They know they're happy with Asuka. They know we're happy with Asuka, so they don't really need to give her a lot. And I think, like I said, to separate them would have been the perfect thing to do. And the worst thing to do, well, in my eyes, is to have Charlotte come back. And, well, then again, I'd rather have her doing it to Sasha Banks and Asuka. But when Charlotte returns and finally, wins the title again, and then they've just sacrificed that for her, I think that would be worst case scenario.
Yeah, fair enough.
Prediction wise, Brandon went Bayley, I went Banks. Who do you guys go for?
Sasha Banks.
And the scores at the moment, it is 3-3 between me and Brandon, and it is 4-3 to you guys at this moment in time. Polls 66% went for Sasha Banks. And what could follow this incredible match, eh? Well, Charlie Caruso is backstage with the Hurt Business. She asked about the challenge made by Mustafa Ali for a member of their stable to face someone from Retribution. Bobby Lashley is stepping up and putting the United States Championship on the line against Slapjack. Lashley back. How we got here? WWE hate Retribution. Faults. Quickly, before we get on to Retribution bashing, which I think is rightfully, should Bobby Lashley get his dream match with Brock? People have talked about it for 5 years. Does Bobby Lashley deserve that opportunity?
It's his dream match. I don't know if it's my dream match. I wouldn't
we're all booking ourselves in the matches. Yeah,
this is the thing you've heard Lashley going, "Oh, I want Brock." Does that appeal to any? Is it? I thought it was just me because I'm going. Well, I suppose, but not really. Like, maybe it's just something that keeps him going in the day, eh?
You reckon he's just sitting there, he turns off the light at night, he's like, tomorrow's going to be the day they do it.
Brock's going to come. He's going to do it. Well, what happened in the match?
I think...
Sorry,
I was just going to say, I think if they were going to put Lashley in that sort of position, it would have been in his initial run when he was pushed. And, of course, he helped Donald Trump to beat Vince McMahon, so...
I think enough said there, isn't it? I think anything Bobby Lashley gets is his own fault, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, what happened?
An enabler.
Yeah, exactly. What happened in the match? Well, Slapjack, remember him? He tried to get an early advantage by throwing his shirt at Lashley, but the Almighty still took control with a shoulder thrust. Retribution member actually managed to get a little offense, hit a cannonball in the corner. Lashley was able to apply the Hurt Locker to get the win. As soon as it was all over, Ali's faction rushed the ring and attacked him, but Lashley fought them off until his teammates arrived to even the odds, and the Hurt Business drove Retribution off to Endless. What was everybody's faults? This was raw.
So they are being booked. They are being booked to look weaker than the Nexus were at the end of the Nexus run. So after the match, there's a 3-on-1 in the ring with Retribution, but Lashley is already on top of it and fighting them off before the rest of the Hurt Locker come out. How can they possibly be taken seriously if they can't beat someone down with a 3-on-1 advantage? It was a jobber match, essentially, just Lashley being put over against someone that, as Shelton Benjamin put in the promo, the one in the lame mask, and they laugh because they all have lame masks. They are just being booked to be an absolute joke. They could have been pushed as a major threat, but clearly there's no faith in what they were doing, so they decide to go the complete opposite direction.
Well, I think the core had better build up, you know.
Yeah,
it's one of the things the WWE do when they've got too many people on the payroll, though, isn't it? It's like, oh, we'll throw a quick stable together.
Yeah, but there's no one. They're giving them random names and stuff rather than giving them the names that they had in NXT. So they're just faceless cronies that are ineffective at the moment.
They're intentionally fucking them up. That's just the only way around it. They can't be given the names, be given that look, and then to just be job. I mean, like I said, Shane Thorne didn't do too bad in this match, but Retribution, they're just done. You know, like I said, talk about the core, talk about the new Nexus, talk about the worst groups that we've had. Retribution will just go down as, we thought we were trying something, but we just gave up.
Very quickly, in a space of weeks, they've not been built at all. It's baffling the way that they've been booked for me.
Again, it doesn't help with no crowd reaction for this kind of thing.
True.
You can't have them come out and beat down anyone and absolutely no one reacts.
Yeah. It's just, this is the problem. I mean, the match itself, I'm going to give it a 2, and I think that's being kind to it.
I think it is being kind. I'll give it a 1.
1.5 for me.
I'm just a nice guy. Just
one thing that I forgot to mention. Sorry to go back to the Bailey Banks match, but I did do a boss time count from Michael Cole. Guess how many times Michael Cole said the words boss or boss time?
37.
Oh, it's not quite that high.
28.
26.
Bonus point.
How long was the match? Like 32 minutes. So almost once a minute through the match, Michael Cole uses boss or boss time. He is very on brand.
He must tell someone. He must have a drinking game with someone at home. You know, where he's just going, right, let's. Every time I say boss, you just take a shot. Because it's just incredible.
I'm just glad that they've got Tribal Chief instead of Big Dog now in here for Reigns. So they've got multiple nicknames for him to switch between.
What about Sheamus? I mean, he's a great white. He's got all these great catchphrases, nicknames that they weren't sure what to give him. Anyway, moving on. Survivor Series is taking place on November 22nd, and The Undertaker will be celebrated all month long. 30 Days of the Dead will be followed up by the big Survivor Series event built around Big Evil. Not sure if he's going to wrestle or even show up. Would be nice if he did, though, after all the effort they're putting in. What are your thoughts on Survivor Series coming up with it being 30 years and it being, after The Undertaker had retired, make it again?
If anyone deserves a 30-year celebration, it's The Undertaker. In what way they're going to celebrate him, I'm not sure. I'd like to think that he's going to have a match, even if it's just a squash match against anyone on the roster, probably Retribution.
Come on, Slapjack.
But from the way that The Undertaker has spoken in the past, he doesn't necessarily, or likes to think that he doesn't make it all about himself. So hopefully he can put on a bit of a show rather than just come out and give us a like a slow walk to the ring and stand in the ring while people applaud him virtually.
Yeah, hopefully they do. Hopefully they've got something special planned for him. As you say, he deserves it. I'm looking forward to Survivor Series. It's one. Si knows how much I love the Survivor Series format. If they go back the 4-on-4 elimination matches the whole night through, then I'm completely sold on it, because that's me back in the day for WWF classics. But we'll end up with one elimination match and 8 singles matches.
And I'm not going to miss a chance to plug our Survivor Series. We covered 8 elimination tag matches. Go back and listen to them to listen to Chris talk about how much he loves Survivor Series.
Without, and don't forget, of course, on the WNR, we'll be joined by Jaxie Scarlett for Survivor Series event as well. So nice bit of plugging all round, guys. Match 7, our main event, McIntyre versus Randy Orton. How we got here? Well, interesting enough, Drew hasn't main evented the pay-per-view as champion, and this is the first time. Unfortunately, this is not the first time Orton and Drew have clashed. We saw at SummerSlam, Drew out-wrestled him, and at Clash of Champions, thanks to some legends, he retained in an ambulance match. Would tonight be any different? What are the thoughts on this feud and also Drew's title reign, which stands at this moment in time of 202 days?
Go on, Chris. You can go first.
Yeah, so stand on Orton in this feud. Right, Orton's a weird one for, I'm sure, most wrestling fans now, because he's undoubtedly one of a guaranteed future Hall of Famer, one of the absolute best of the past 15 years or so. But everyone is still so absolutely bored. He just seems to be around constantly. I mean, his injury record has got to be pretty low for the sheer amount of time he's on screen, the amount of matches he's put in. So while you know you're going to get a good Randy Orton match, no matter who he's wrestling against, do we ever need to see him again?
I quite liked the way that he'd been built in this. So he almost went back to his legend killer stick after beating Edge in what was billed as the greatest match of all time, of course. And yeah, that's why the legends came back to haunt him. The one bit that they recapped that I really wasn't a fan of was the night vision moment on Raw, which was something out of Scooby-Doo. But yeah, Drew had been made to look like an absolute beast. They talked up the fact that it was on the Raw before Hell in a Cell was the first time he'd lost by pinfall in over a year. So clearly they were completely behind Drew and pushing him to the moon. For me, I think this was the right choice to go on last as well, because this has been the sort of top feud over the summer, really, for WWE. The other thing that I quite liked, so as the cell is lowered, there's fire pyro going off around the ring, which makes it look quite apt that it's sort of being lowered into hell, which I thought was good. But yeah, I quite liked the build to this feud.
Well, back to the match, and as Drew made his entrance, Orton was disguised and he tried to attack him. The chap was having none of it. They fought round the structure and they finally locked in the cell after Drew shut the door behind him. I do like that. I'm taking still all the time. It was his go-to move, wasn't it? Shutting the door behind you. I just think it's cool. We see McIntyre was the first to go for a weapon. He grabbed a steel chair and hit his rival for a while, smiling from ear to ear. He lined up for a claymore, but Orton hit his leg with a chair. Legend Killer stomped McIntyre's head in the steps and then whipped him into a different set of steps as he sat up against the wall. When he got back in the ring, Scott began making a comeback and threw the challenger across the ring with a belly to belly. They took a long time fighting. There's one thing about Randy Orton is not only does his entrance seem to be longer than The Undertaker's, but also I just feel like I'm watching his matches for a very long time. And I don't know if I just don't like Randy Orton or... because I know they say, less is more, but I just feel it just seemed longer, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's generally because he's booked up the card and therefore his matches tend to be longer. Just one thing that you mentioned about the entrances. So Andy Orton's really getting into the Halloween spirit of his fancy dress this year, isn't he? He's dressing up as anything.
He's dressed up as a member of Retribution.
Yeah, pretty much. And
why is he wearing long pants? That completely threw him.
Yeah, it really did.
It's the slacks that throws McIntyre off. He's going, hang on a minute.
And the other thing that I would definitely make more of a deal about if Orton hadn't tried to jump in, but you should never have the champion coming out first for a main event match. Yeah. It's an absolute no-no.
Well, we see Drew putting Orton through a table at ringside with another suplex, and the Viper regained the upper hand, but kept failing to get the 3 count. He went back under the ring and grabbed some bolt cutters to cut the chain off the cell door. He tried to leave, but McIntyre chased him down. And then Orton climbed to the top of the cell, and McIntyre soon followed. The Viper then picked up a lightsaber by the look of things that he had hidden up there. McIntyre ducked it and tackled him. They both started climbing down the side of the cell and fought until the champion fell. I'm not making this up, about 45 feet down through the announce table. It looked higher, but they missed the bump on the camera as well. I don't know why the camera was round that side when he went. What did we think of them going? Go on.
So I was just going to say about climbing on top of the cage. I'll tell you what really not annoying me about it, but just observation. Normally, it's your heel champion who is escaping, climbing to the top of the cage. You have Orton climb up there. If I'd have been McIntyre, I'd have got a chair, just sat there. He's got to beat you for the championship. They're not going to wrestle all night.
4 hours later, when they're just raising the cell and Orton's still there, and he's just like, "Are you staying there tonight?"
Just let it time out. He's got to come to you. If nothing's good going to happen, good's going to happen. You chasing after him. He's trying to get you up there.
The one thing I noticed about the spot was that they are on the commentary side, obviously, because they go through the table. But on the middle beam, there's 2 perfectly positioned spots where they can both put their feet. I've never seen that before, but they're in almost the exact position that they wanted them to be. So it was handy.
It's not just that, it's the punches as well that they were. Well, I say punches they were throwing. I don't think you could swat a fly with what they were doing up there. They just seemed so like, like, don't hit me too hard, we might fall. Oh, wait a minute,
we might fall. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was trying to tickle him off. That's what was going on.
Yeah. The other thing that I've never really understood with Hell in a Cell matches, and for some reason this didn't really come up in the series, but the commentary team mentioned that the pin has to be inside the ring. Why? That it doesn't add anything to a Hell in a Cell match. Like, if McIntyre had been pinned after going through the table, that would have been like a really convincing way of like taking the title off him. But he's got to pick him up, drag him round to the side where the door is, put him in the ring, and then try and go for a pin. It just takes something away from it for me. So
I think that's a rule change.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was about to say, I think they checked, because I think Chris Jericho and Triple H had a Hell in a Cell match where Triple H pinned him
on top of the cell.
Yeah. And so they might have changed that recently. But if they don't tell us, or, you know what I mean, if it's not really a case, then you could say false count anywhere, and it would have worked. I did like it because McIntyre was not bleeding from the mouth at that point, and he did look really fucked up. And Orton getting him to try and get into the ring. And again, if I'm McIntyre, I'll just dead weight and say, no way you're doing this. But the champ, once he got into the ring, did manage to hit a Claymore, which sent Orton out of the ring. Don't you hate it when that happens? And then Orton ducked another Claymore, walked down with an RKO for the win to become 14-time champion. I was a little bit surprised because obviously he's gone through off the cell, but just one RKO. I mean, it would have been a little bit better, maybe shoulder up and then a punt to the face to, I mean, it's his title reign, 200 days, and then RKO, but I might be wrong.
Especially since I had McIntyre kicking out one the rest of the match.
Yeah, and also he's a guy that kicked out of, 5 F5s at WrestleMania to win the title, but one RKO puts him away.
It's the thing. It wasn't a bad match, but I mean, we've seen this a lot with WWE thinking a rivalry is just multiple matches as opposed to kind of story. I think this for the match itself, yes, it had a big bump. What did you guys think? Or Chris, what did you think first of the main event?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it shouldn't have been the main event. Sasha, Bayley should have been. But it was fun. I say that taking that bump through the table looked great. It was perfectly functional. I enjoyed it while I was watching it. I don't think I'll go back and feel the need to rewatch it anytime soon. But I'm giving it 3 stars as a perfectly decent Hell in a Cell match.
So I actually thought this was better inside the ring than the Reigns Uso one. Not as good a storytelling in the match, but I thought the in-ring stuff was better. Not often these days we get to see a cell spot as well, so that was a nice bonus. But I have a horrible feeling that this rivalry is going to continue on and on, especially because Drew was already back on his feet to end the show, which is not really the way to sell a beating in a Hell in a Cell match.
No, I don't think it is. And like I said, you've still got a couple of pay-per-views to the end of the year and to see what happens. But I mean, it's interesting to think what will happen to McIntyre. Will he hold the title again, or will he go the way of Jinder Mahal? You know, I'm hoping, but on the whole hope, he gets enough opportunity. But you just never know, do you? Once they lose it and had that long title reign, and then you have to wait and see.
Maybe they can get 3MB back together.
There's the dream. Out of 5 for the match. We just did that. That's fine. That is all sorted then. I given that a. Did we do that? I can't remember. We got. Chris
No,
got
we didn't.
Yeah, sorry, I did. I jumped the shark.
Simon, what did you say? What was your rating out of 5?
I am gonna go for 3 stars for this one. So I thought it was better, as I say, in the ring than the Reigns Usos one, but not as good story and just not as good as the Bailey Sasha match, which I agree with Chris was the match of the night for me.
Yeah, so we've got our match of the night. We'll just do predictions quickly because not only did Brandon beat me, you guys, who did you go for, Orton in this one or McIntyre?
We went for McIntyre.
Okay, so you still beat me, so
We've left the door ajar. Well, it makes a change after last time, doesn't it? So
I lost on both counts, you know, like I said. But hey, I wasn't going to go against
previously
McIntyre.
Undefeated.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go against McIntyre. I'd rather have the losing my winning streak rather than having Randy Orton. I don't care if I'm wrong. I'll just stick with my guy, and hopefully that will improve. And I know with predictions, heart over head never works out. McIntyre got 62% on the poll as well when it came to who everybody thought was going to win. And speaking of polls, we did the what did you think of the Hell in a Cell event? Awesome got 26%, Great got 20%, Good got 22%, and OK was 29%. So it was okay overall. We've got our matches of the night. All of us went for Sasha Banks versus Bailey. We also do a man or woman of the night. So, Chris, who was your man or woman? Who was your MVP of the night?
Mine was Bailey. I think she plays the heel so well now. Her non-stop talking throughout the match, the viciousness of her, and the fact that she still looked fairly strong despite losing. She's my MVP.
That was Simon.
I'm tempted to go Bailey as well, but I'm going to go with Roman Reigns, whose character work at the moment is something to behold.
I would have to agree with you there. I'm going Roman Reigns as well with character. And finally, out of 10, our rating of the night. And Chris, what was your rating out of 10?
I am giving it a 7 out of 10.
I am going to go 7.5. I love bringing extra. I'm Dave Meltzer, just bringing extra numbers into an already fine system.
I think if it hadn't been for the Hardy, Elias, and the Lashley match, if they'd just got rid of those 2 matches, I'd have given probably this would have been up there 8 or 9, but they've just dragged it down.
I think for me, I mean, the one thing I usually say about B pay-per-views is that nothing normally happens, but I think tonight really delivered. It was kind of making it, the promos and all the build-up. It was a 3-match show, really. And I think those 3 matches really delivered. I think we saw new champs and, of course, a match of the year contender when it comes to Banks and Bailey. So I'm going to give that an 8.25 out of 10. So that is basically it. I mean, I should say 10 years ago, The Miz was Money in the Bank and Randy Orton was WWE champion. How times change in WWE, as we always know. But that is it for Hell in the Cell. Don't forget our follower is Joel Pearl, and that is it. Any final words on Hell in the Cell pay-per-view?
I really enjoyed the show. Obviously, it's a nice, fitting conclusion to our Hell in a Cell coverage, which you can get wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm not missing this opportunity to get a nice little plug in. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought that the three main matches were great. It would have been better with a couple more sort of throwaway matches maybe on the card rather than just hours of adverts, because it was still a 3-hour show even with 5-6 matches. But yeah, the three sort of main events or co-main events, however you want to put it, were great. So no complaints whatsoever from me.
If they'd have given me just an hour and a half show and they'd gone, right, we're just going to do this hour and a half on the network and had those 3 matches, I'd have been absolutely delighted. I'd have thought that was one of the best evenings of wrestling I've seen in a long time.
Well, that is it. And don't forget, we are on Twitter at the WNR Podcast. I'm at the WNR JR. And also, do you want to plug your Twitter quickly?
Yeah, we are at Select Match Pod. We usually have quite a lot of comedic things to say. We don't generally talk a lot about the modern day stuff, but we like to do a On This Day segment where we look back at wrestling history and all the things that happened in the Attitude Era. So yeah, give us a follow. That's the same on Instagram and Facebook as well. That's at Select Match Pod.
Well, weird enough you say that. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, the WNR Podcast. Send us an email to WNRpodcast@gmail.com. On YouTube, podcast got the same time as they do SoundCloud on your phone, Stitcher Radio and iTunes, where you can download, subscribe, rate and review there. So that is it. Our next episode is mine and Monty. We're doing NXT Halloween Havoc. But today I had the pleasure, the past couple of weeks actually, I've had the pleasure to be joined by Simon and Chris. Just like to thank you guys for being on the show. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves.
Yeah, I've had a great time. Thanks very much for having me.
It's been an absolute blast. With it being the Halloween season, can I get a quick plug in myself?
Yeah, of course you can.
Thank you very much. So, along with Select Match Site with me and Si, I also co-host a horror podcast where we pit the best of horror subgenres against each other. You can find us at I Spit on Your Grades on all good podcast networks. We're at Spit Grades on Twitter and on Instagram, and I Spit on Your Grades on Facebook. Check us out, please. We'd appreciate it.
Brilliant. Well, that is it for today. Like I said, I was joined by I'll say Simon and Chris. I've got to know you guys now, and maybe in the future, maybe working together on something a little bit ridiculous. It's like I said, the ball's in your court now, guys. You probably had enough of me for 2 weeks, but until then, thanks for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having us. See you
Take
soon.
care. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Bye, everybody.